Welcome to the Timeless Talents channel. In today's video, I'll be shining a spotlight on some of the most enchanting Hollywood mothers and their gorgeous daughters. Let's get started, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your support. Kelly Preston passed away in 2020, at the age of 57, and Ella Blue Travolta, 25 years old. Halle Berry, 58 years old, and Nala Ariella Aubrey, 17 years old. Sarah Michelle Gellar, 48 years old, and Charlotte Prinz, 15 years old. Catherine Deneuve, 81 years old, and Chiara Mastroianni, 53 years old. Carrie Fisher passed away in 2016, at the age of 60, and Billie Lourd, 33 years old. Jennifer Connelly, 54 years old, and Agnes Bettany, 14 years old. Terry Hatcher, 60 years old, and Emerson Tenney, 27 years old. Julianne Moore, 64 years old, and Liv Freundlich, 23 years old. Sharon Osbourne, 72 years old, and Kelly Osbourne, 40 years old. Katie Holmes, 46 years old, and Suri Noel, 67 years old. Meryl Streep, 76 years old, and Grace Gummer, 39 years old. Jessica Alba, 44 years old, and Honor Marie Warren, 17 years old. Salma Hayek, 58 years old, and Valentina Paloma Pinot, 17 years old. Michelle Pfeiffer, 67 years old, and Claudia Rose Pfeiffer, 32 years old. Kate Beckinsale, 52 years old, and Lily M. O'Sheen, 26 years old. Susan Sarandon, 78 years old, and Eva Amuri, 40 years old. Bette Midler, 79 years old, and Sophie Von Hazelberg, 38 years old. Tish Cyrus, 58 years old, and Miley Cyrus, 32 years old. Tina Knowles, 71 years old, and Beyoncé, 43 years old. Kris Jenner, 69 years old, and Kim Kardashian, 44 years old. Melanie Griffith, 68 years old, and Dakota Johnson, 35 years old. Vanessa Paradis, 52 years old, and Lily Rose Depp, 26 years old. Lisa Bonet, 57 years old, and Zoe Kravitz, 36 years old. Faith Hill, 57 years old, and Audrey Caroline McGraw, 23 years old. Jamie Lee Curtis, 66 years old, and Annie Guest, 38 years old. Maya Rudolph, 53 years old, and Pearl Minnie Anderson, 19 years old. Serena Williams, 43 years old, and Alexis Olympia Ohanian Jr., 7 years old. Angelina Jolie, 50 years old, and Zahara Marley Jolie, 20 years old. Gwyneth Paltrow, 52 years old, and Apple Martin, 21 years old. Debbie Reynolds passed away in 2016, at the age of 84, and Carrie Fisher passed away in 2016, at the age of 60. Victoria Beckham, 51 years old, and Harper Beckham, 14 years old. Christy Brinkley, 71 years old, and Sailor Brinkley Cook, 27 years old. Catherine Zeta-Jones, 55 years old, and Karis Zeta-Douglas, 22 years old. Leah Thompson, 64 years old, and Zoe Deutsch, 30 years old. Jennifer Lopez, 56 years old, and Emmy Maribel Muniz, 17 years old. Meryl Streep, 76 years old, and Mamie Gummer, 42 years old. Sarah Jessica Parker, 60 years old, and Tabitha Hodge Broderick, 16 years old. Angelina Jolie, 50 years old, and Vivian Jolie, 17 years old. Brooke Shields, 60 years old, and Greer Hammond Henchy, 19 years old. Laurie Metcalf, 70 years old, and Zoe Perry, 41 years old. Vanessa Williams, 62 years old, and Jillian Hervey, 36 years old. Jerry Hall, 69 years old, and Georgia May Jagger, 33 years old. Jada Pinkett Smith, 53 years old, and Willow Smith, 24 years old. Kris Jenner, 69 years old, and Kylie Jenner, 27 years old. Cindy Crawford, 59 years old, and Kaya Jordan Gerber, 23 years old. Yolanda Hadid, 61 years old, and Bella Hadid, 28 years old. Demi Moore, 62 years old, and Rumor Willis, 36 years old. Blythe Danner, 82 years old, and Gwyneth Paltrow, 52 years old. Meg Ryan, 63 years old, and Daisy True Ryan, 21 years old. Anna Nicole Smith passed away in 2007, at the age of 39, and Danielyn Burkhead, 18 years old. Sandra Bullock, 61 years old, and Layla Bullock, 11 years old. Jessica Simpson, 45 years old, and Maxwell Drew Johnson, 14 years old. Lisa Marie Presley passed away in 2023, at the age of 54, and Riley Keough, 36 years old. Drew Barrymore, 50 years old, and Frankie Barrymore Kopelman, 10 years old. Mariska Hargitay, 61 years old, and Amaya Herman, 14 years old. Nicole Richie, 43 years old, and Harlow Madden, 17 years old. Kourtney Kardashian, 46 years old, and Penelope Disick, 13 years old. Naomi Watts, 56 years old, and Kai Schreiber, 16 years old. Markellen Bertrand passed away in 2007, at the age of 56, and Angelina Jolie, 50 years old. Uma Thurman, 55 years old, and Maya Hawke, 27 years old. Kelly Ripa, 54 years old, and Lola Consuelos, 24 years old. Jennifer Garner, 53 years old, and Violet Affleck, 19 years old. Andie MacDowell, 67 years old, and Margaret Qualley, 30 years old. Heather Locklear, 63 years old, and Ava Sambora, 27 years old. Courtney Cox, 61 years old, and Coco Arquette, 21 years old. Diana Ross, 81 years old, and Tracy Ellis Ross, 52 years old. Tish Cyrus, 58 years old, and Noah Cyrus, 25 years old. Tina Knowles, 71 years old, and Solange Knowles, 39 years old. Kris Jenner, 69 years old, and Kendall Jenner, 29 years old. Madonna, 66 years old, and Lourdes Leon, 28 years old. Yolanda Hadid, 61 years old, and Gigi Hadid, 30 years old. Reese Witherspoon, 49 years old, and Ava Elizabeth Phillip, 25 years old. Goldie Hawn, 79 years old, and Kate Hudson, 46 years old.